Okay, hi. Welcome to my first ever Zwift race YouTube video. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to work, but this is just a test run, so I'm going to practice here. So, I know we're all very stressed about coronavirus, so this is what we should do as cyclists, get more Zwift racing in. So, I'm a Cat C racer, and I thought I would do a short video on YouTube about the tactics of Zwift racing. I'm not going to get into the details of setup or anything like that. There's lots of great resources in that, but there's very little information about how to race a Zwift race. Know your limits, number one. Number two, start really hard. So here you see my FTP is about 270 watts, but I go as hard as I can for the first 45 roughly seconds, and we'll watch that now. Yeah, 442 is tough. Actually, for the first 45 seconds, I went an average of 442 watts with a maximum of 651 watts. So obviously, this is not a sustainable pace, but it's a really great tactic to try to weed out people that weren't prepared that might kill you later if you let them hold on until they're warmed up. So that brings up the key. Warm up before the race. All right, about now I start to think about, following my FTP and staying at or below FTP roughly. But I am, for the now, going to try and stay with this lead group. You can see in the top right-hand corner the mini map displays roughly, you can see by color that we're all pretty much together. Blue is C, B is green, A is red. So this is a flat 50K course, volcano flat. So you shouldn't expect things to really break down exactly by category necessarily, although typically, and you'll see later that this race does break into two pelotons. Yeah, so I've been fighting a little bit too hard for myself so far. I'm at the front of the race, and yeah, and a tip for you is that other apps may steal your sensors, and that's what happened with my heart rate. So it's nice to have good heart rate recording, good data. So yeah, I am working pretty hard. My max heart rate's maybe 185, 183 inside, and I'm pushing that anaerobic threshold area already. All right, so fast forwarding a little bit, getting to the point, where I really start to realize I'm not going to be able to keep my pace. For the first 6 minutes, my average was 300 watts, and my FTP is more like 280 or 270. So not sustainable. It's amazing how quickly your reserves run out when you start to work at FTPs, at wattages above your FTP. Yeah, we're really starting to string out here. The A's, you can see the green A's are really, the green B's are really close to the front with the red A out leading off with an attack. Yeah, so it's about now I start to realize I need to let that go. But I'm still gonna keep my wits about me, keep track of what's going on in the race. You can see a little gap opening up with a blue dot separated from the yellow dot there. But I am on the limit, so still. Okay, now you can see there's kind of a little bit of a blue peloton. That's the C peloton opening a gap a little bit. Definitely struggling, the C's are, to keep up with those A's, B's. Yeah, up until about this point, right about here, I'm going to make a little bit of an effort and see that kicking in the power up, I see that there is a peloton starting to establish, and I'm just a little bit behind the curve. So just a little kick here, just to, not panicking, but I do want to be with the peloton that's steadily forming. It's a very gradual process, so patience is really important. Being that this race is over an hour long, don't expect yourself to have some insane wattage that's over your FTP. It should be a little below your average FTP. So think about that number, and I'll say it again. Don't go over it, because that's where you blow up. You can see it's slowly forming still. Patience. Yeah, so there is a little peloton now. Now I'm going to fast forward, because once you find that peloton, you can generally, ride the rest of the race at the pace of that peloton, and it's going to be typically a pace that you can handle, assuming that you did put yourself in the group that's right for you. Now, if I had tried really hard to stay in that A group, I would not be able to have the power to stay with that A group, and I would blow up. And when I blow up from that A group, that means you're going to blow up, and there's nothing you can do. So this peloton that's forming now would blow right past me. So it's really important to just stay with your limits. I did notice there's a lot of D's, the yellow, in with the C's, so there really were only 2 pelotons in this race. It's not uncommon for a flat race to typically only have a couple pelotons, despite so we'll have an A B group and a C D group. Yeah, you can see the sweat really shining on me. I apologize. I'm embarrassed my own gut. Paunch sticking out from the bib shorts. Man. Anyways, yeah, so our group is growing. You saw back at around 1844, we just finished our first lap. So this volcano flat course it's got about 5 punches per lap. I call them punches. They're just short climbs that you do need to put out a significant amount of power to stay with your group. It's the only selections in this race. So the only 2 ways to get dropped are A, ride beyond your limits, or B, just not have the punch to stay with the group over the climb. I'm going to get into that in more detail later. So we're riding along. It's about leading up into that next one of the punches. It shows real selection. You can watch the mini map. You can see some people get dropped off the back here. So yeah, another thing about Zwift racing, make sure you hydrate, have good cooling. I've got 2 fans on me, but I'm still sweating. Still the sheen is building on me, but I'm doing my best to stay cool. So maybe a 3rd fan will be even better. I don't know. Or maybe get a little mist going, some cool water spraying on me. I don't know. Still riding along just about threshold FTP. It's definitely worked, but I am riding within my own limits. That's the key. If being in the draft you're riding over your limits, you should probably drop off. maybe that group is riding over their limits, and if you maintain your limit, you have a chance that you'll be able to rebuild a new peloton behind the existing peloton that's probably going to break apart, and you'll be better off for it and overall faster. All right, here comes that hill I was talking about, coming around that next turn. Going to ramp up the speed power here. Watch the mini map. You can, about 4 people fall off the back. So I'm starting off at the front, like, at 500 watts. That's hard after you've been going 30 minutes, in the sweet spot to FTP range. Yeah, really strung out a little bit. There's at least one guy here dropping off. Oh, there's another group straggling. Definitely one blue dot. C is falling off, and the D is falling off, and there's another D that managed to catch back on. So, okay, coming in on the end of our second lap. So the second lap, the average wattage was 253 watts versus the average for the first lap that was a little bit higher than that, or like 246 watts. Actually, the first lap was less. Yeah, the first lap, 246 versus 253 for the second lap, is an indication of how those spikes in power that, the beginning of the race actually end up with a net average lower power. So that's why consistent power can actually win. Here comes the end of the second lap. So good to be, observing the race and keeping track of what's going on. I like to watch both the peloton and the mini map. My screen's a little far away. It's hard to actually read names and stuff, so I don't really keep track of who's who. But that might be an advantage as well. So here goes I'm working a little bit harder now because the wattage is dropping off. Third lap is less than the second lap by about 10 watts. The third lap's 243 watts average. So I'm trying to keep the pace up. I don't really want an attack to go off the front because I want it to be in the sprint. Okay, so there's a guy going off here. This H. Matoba, if you can see on the right, he's off the front now. He's a green rider. One advanced tactic to know is that you should pay attention to who has an actual power meter and who doesn't. So that little lightning bolt next to the watts per W/kg, watts per kilogram, that indicates that the rider is using a power meter to get their data, as opposed to Zwift offers another feature called Zwift Power. Now, Zwift Power is a interesting feature that where Zwift estimates your power based on your speed sensor and the type of trainer you have. It's really a very inaccurate. It could be off by 100 watts or more, depending on the inflation of your tire and the pressure that you apply to the tire from the trainer. So when you see somebody that's just got too much power, like this guy H. Matoba, without a power meter, he's using Zwift Power, he's just a little too strong for us. He's getting just too much watts per kilogram. He's been doing 4 to 4.5 watts consistently. Watts per kilogram consistently. So you really have to try to ignore those sorts of riders and compete with people that actually matter. You saw that one guy commented he's using Z Power, F him. So don't chase riders that are riding beyond your limits. Ending the third lap now. This peloton's pretty tight, staying together. We're spreading out a little bit again this climb into the mountain, the volcano. Here we go. Pretty light, pretty lava. So third lap was an average of 2:43. Now the final lap we're going into now was the highest power, actually, at 255 watts. So things heat up, you know. You want to start out low and heat up the power as you go along. People do try to make a few attacks. Here goes a guy off the front for a little bit. Nope, he's caught again. That Manitoba guy, he just keeps riding off the front. No problem for him with Z power. Yeah. I'm sorry, the last lap was 244 watts. The normalized power was 255 watts. I was misstating. So, yeah, I would say that you've got to save your power on these sorts of flat races. You've got to wait for those punches, climb hard on the punches. Maybe someone will drop, but be ready for a sprint too. So I do that here, and that's probably the most important part of any flat race on Zwift. Once you've got the fitness to at least stay with some peloton. So once you've got that fitness, just ride at your pace. Oh, there goes my GoPro. So GoPros, I'm learning, do not have very good battery life. I'm hoping that next time I use my GoPro, it'll be better. Maybe if I turn off the GPS feature in the GoPro, I can actually get more than an hour of recording. I don't know. I'm pretty disappointed with how that GoPro is working out. I want to return it, actually. Maybe. I only had it for a week. Alright, so our group's a little bit more select, smaller, but we're riding, keeping the pace up a little bit. But man, my legs hurt. I want to say that this race was hard. So you be ready for those races. You've got to have pretty fresh legs. You need to get your carbs up, fuel well, get good sleep. All the things you do for any race in real life, those things count on the Zwift race too. If you're reporting your weight right and everything else. So I'm thinking about the sprint here, keeping myself in a position that's pretty good. I didn't slow down enough, maybe. One guy attacks off the front. That was probably the right move. I didn't have that power, though. But, let's see if that Maximus guy can keep off the front. We can watch that. It's a bold move, really, to be going off the front with about a half mile to go. It's really bold. Most people would argue it's pretty noobish unless you have an excellent, 2-minute power, roughly, which is quite a number to try to maintain. Or about 1.5 minutes power. But looks like he's getting dragged back in. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Maximus. We almost cut. This there's got a D-racer. He's putting out maximum power early. Here I go, max power a little early too, really. So I'm actually being the lead-out man. And I had audio, but I'm not going to be able to add that. I don't know how. Unfortunately, the music was playing in the background, and that keeps getting the video banned. But yeah, so I did my lead-out. The rest of the guys, those 3 guys, caught off the back. So that's the race. I got 47th overall. I was really happy with that. Thanks for watching my Zwift video, and I hope you got something interesting out of it. You can go on zwiftpower.com, which is a great website that helps you to track your rankings, and it works a lot like USA Cycling. helps you, or UCI. You can compare your results to those others that had honest power and honest weight, people that take it seriously. So I got like 6 overall out of all the C's. I was a second place category C in our peloton. And again, bye.